Okay, let's see, there was something brought up about me addressing the Septuagint. You know, I brought it up a few times because I've seen King James only advocates say they don't believe the Septuagint exists. I said that in my videos. But here's the main point. Maybe I wasn't clear the first time, so let me be clear. As our president says, if Paul, when quoting the Old Testament, quotes from the Septuagint rather than the Hebrew, and just a footnote here, the examples I gave in my video are examples where the Septuagint and the Hebrew differ on its wording. And that's how I chose those examples, because those specific examples is proof that the quote given in the New Testament is quoting the Septuagint of that Old Testament passage, not the Hebrew. Yes, there was a lot of places where they coincide, where they're identical, they match. I didn't mention any of those because there's no way to know. The ones I mentioned in my video series are ones that it's definitely identifiable as being Septuagint versus Hebrew. So, with that being the case, what does that mean for the whole debate on whether God preserved His words or the meaning? Because, you know, that seems to be kind of one of the arguments, differences between King James only advocates and non-King James only. The King James only, because they pull out, you know, the Proverbs, was it Proverbs 12 passage, your words, anyway, no, Psalm 12, sorry, Psalm 12, not Proverbs, anyway, and they say that God has promised to preserve His words, and of course the argument coming from non-King James only is generally that God preserves the meaning, because He inspired the original autographs, which we don't have anymore. But He has kept the meaning that He conveyed, which is why you can have various translations in English and still be confident that you have God's Word, because the message, the meaning is still retained. So that proof with Paul quoting from the Septuagint rather than the Hebrew, how does that play in this debate? I see it one way, obviously, naturally. They want to see it a different way. You go to bed. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. God saves His people out of other translations. You know, when I gave my own testimony, you know, I was reading from the New King James. Brother Phil says he was in the New World Translation. It seems to me that the fact that God saves people through His preserved words goes against the King James only argument. Because if our mission is to be ambassadors for Christ and to carry out the Great Commission, and God is saving people from translations other than the King James, then why be a King James onlyist? You know, Romans 10, and of course Romans 1:16 and 17, the power of God unto salvation lies in the gospel. So if the gospel is maintained and is correct, then it doesn't matter which translation you're using to reveal that gospel. But if you listen to the King James only, unless you're using the King James, you don't have God's word. So therefore, God's gospel is not going to be right. Therefore, the power of God unto salvation is not right. Anyway, my purpose for pointing that out is the fact to show that God doesn't only save people through the King James. I want to close this video, which closes this video, with a saying here.